As an old college professor told me, art is never finished, only abandoned. I try to find a place in which I'm content to abandon my art because my brain can overanalyze and overthink constantly. And it's a strength, right? It's a double edged sword.
My name's Elisa. If you've never met me, my name is Elisa, and today I am joined by Bryan Atkinson, the lead composer on Guild Wars 2 Visions of Eternity, who's crafted a sweeping musical landscape for the expansion's fantasy world. Thank you for joining me today.
It's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. First, I'd like to know what version of you existed before you became a composer?
What version of me existed? That I appreciate the phrasing in that. I've been composing since I was 13, so it's difficult for me to remember back too much before that. But I think the version of me that existed was a happy kid who loved Lord of the Rings, absolute Lord of the Rings nerd from age 10 on, and haven't looked back. Star Wars as well, Harry Potter, just kind of that trifecta. And I was doing things like Boy Scouts. I was out in nature. I was homeschooled. I was just kind of a fun, gangly kid, honestly, playing basketball and having a good time. And then soundtracks, I started discovering music and soundtracks in late junior high and high school.
So, what does composing at age 13 look like? Like, what kind of tools are you using at 13, and how did you find these tools?
Great question. It was a Yamaha keyboard. I actually still have it. It's right behind me. It is just a home Yamaha keyboard that I saved up money doing odd jobs, and I think my parents paid half of it, and I bought it. And from there, it was just this beautiful world of discovering these sounds and scrolling through the different sounds, and I could record onto the keyboard itself. And I remember just being inspired by the clouds one day. I think it was a cloudy day, and I just remember playing just like a simple minor arpeggio, where you just kind of split out the notes on the keyboard and da 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 da. And I just remember thinking, oh, that's nice. And then I was like, what if I add a melody to that? So I took my right hand and I just sort of started playing some simple notes because I'd been taking piano lessons at that time. I remember thinking, wow, this is kind of exciting. I'm actually creating something new. And I think I wrote that piece in like an afternoon. And I called my dad. I was all excited. That was kind of the first earliest memory I have of composing something.
Most people think composing for a video game is just background music, but you're essentially scoring the emotions of players, or you're essentially scoring emotions that players have not felt yet. How do you write music for a moment that has not been experienced yet?
I like that question. One of the exciting parts for me is when I get, let's say, a gameplay footage that's maybe not completely finished yet from the developers, and there might be sound effects and whatnot, and then my job is to fill that in with the emotion and find the emotional pacing, the undertones, the drama, if there's any, where are we in the progression of the story, and then once I start to compose, then it gets really exciting when I'm like, oh my goodness, this is actually making this come to life.
When you were explaining it, they kind of send you like two different options, like they could die or they could not die. Like, are they sending you that kind of footage and then you're basing the
Oh,
composition off of that?
yeah, absolutely. Those kind of things are very normal. So then you could just imagine. A lot of it is imagination, like imagining this happen. But I'm very inspired by concept art, so anything goes a long way in the creative process, whether it's gameplay footage or sketches or concept art or just a written description of what they're looking for in combination with reference tracks, maybe from other soundtracks, and so that helps a lot.
So, what does the messy, unglamorous part of the creative process look like?
It's a lot of trying not to get carpal tunnel, um, clicking constantly. I have little tools like a Stream Deck right here, which is like a little thing where you can program shortcuts. The cable isn't quite reaching to show you fully, but it's a very common tool, not just for music, but I've been trying to streamline my process to get more efficient. So I'm spending more time creatively and less time with all the little buttons because it feels like you're kind of in this spaceship of technology when you're recording every line on a keyboard, and then if the timing's off, you have to fix that, right, so that it lines up to your grid, which is basically just like how everything stays in time. Um, on, in a piece of music, and then adding effects like what reverb will I use on this track, or this instrument, and then all the little nerdy things that we get into, that is the craft. So the intersection of composition, production, um, it's fun, but it can be a lot at times, but it's still great. I'm still like a kid in a candy store, honestly, with it. Otherwise, but sometimes deadlines can be a little tight, but thankfully I have a great network, so I can farm out additional work to my friends if I need to. And I'm sure there's other unglamorous things, but I try to keep the glass half full.
You had a full Budapest orchestra and folk instrumentation in the same score. Was there ever a moment where those two worlds clashed and you had to choose one over the other?
Oh, that's a really good question, because we thought about that when I was composing the drafts for Visions of Eternity, and I started with some of the forest combat music first to kind of get the tone for that, which didn't really have much orchestra at all. It was more percussion heavy, hand pan percussion, which is kind of like a magical metallic percussion kind of instrument. Ethnic woodwinds, and then I did the main theme for the expansion, which was a full bravado Errol Flynn, piratey alt pirate universe orchestra. There was a little bit of, well, how are we going to bridge the gap with this, all of these things. And my friend Ben Ash did additional music on the expansion. He wrote the combat music for the coast, which was more orchestral focused, in line with the main theme, and it incorporated the folk instruments as well, like the solo strings or the solo woodwinds, and kind of that pirate sea shanty atmosphere. And so once those drafts started coming in, I think everyone felt a little better about the direction, because there's two maps in the expansion: the Magic Forest, the Magic Coast, and just because I started with the coast, but it's interesting because the main theme, I was thinking, okay, I'm gonna write a big epic main theme, inspired by Guild Wars One with Jeremy Soule, just like kind of that classic orchestra sound. And it, I think fans really liked it. I try not to scroll every YouTube comment, but sometimes I can't help just see what fans are saying about the music on YouTube and whatnot, to stroke my ego. No, okay. And it ended up being that on Spotify, at least, the one that has risen to the top in the expansion is actually one of my explore tracks, more ambient in nature, for the Magic Coast, which was the folk instrumentation. So I think fans resonated with that more than the main theme, which was a pleasant surprise. I wasn't necessarily expecting it, but yeah. So it's been a really cool journey.
What is getting feedback like after the project has already been released? Is it usually you going through comments, or do you get something from the client? How does that work?
So in this particular case, I know that the client is happy way before the fans have had a chance to look at it. But I'm still, in a way, I'm still writing for the fans, right? Because I know it's going to go to hundreds of thousands of people, which is an incredible opportunity to have your music in front of that kind of audience. And I don't take it lightly. But if the devs are happy, I know that we're going to be in a good place, because they're already picky, and we're all trying to write something and create art at a high level in the beautiful world of Tyria. So I'm really fortunate that the team at ArenaNet is fantastic to work with, and they have a vision, and then they also let me do my thing. So I'm not really worried about what fans say, but it is just nice to kind of hear their feedback, and it really is rewarding at the end of the day.
Has there ever been a situation on a project where you had to tune out the outside opinions that maybe felt not useful anymore to protect only the thing that you could hear?
Not so much for me yet. I have colleagues who this has happened to sometimes, and they have to, and oftentimes it's not about the music, it's just about other things going on in the game, or just things outside of their control. And so they have to just tune out those voices. But for me, I don't know if I've had anything really where I'm stressed about it, where I'm thinking, oh no, what are the fans going to say about this if we go this direction? Because so far, at least with Guild Wars, there's been more or less an established tone, and we haven't deviated from the tone too much. A few years ago, I did more synthesizer work in the combat music for the Secrets of the Obscure expansion, and that had more, yeah, kind of like organic synthy textures and vocal elements, which was a bit more unusual for the traditional orchestral landscape of Guild Wars. But fans liked it, and the team liked it, so we've kind of pushed the boundaries a little bit. But otherwise, I haven't had a negative experience so much in that regard.
How do you know when something you've made is actually done
Oh, goodness,
from
as a
your personal
oh
perspective?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that's even better. As an old college professor told me, art is never finished, only abandoned. So
Mm.
I try to find a place in which I'm content to abandon my art because my brain can overanalyze and overthink constantly, and it's a strength, right? It's a double-edged sword. Being a creative, it's said. I learned this from someone that creatives, especially composers, sometimes can overthink and be more perfectionist than engineers. And we actually have that capacity to be that tuned into the details. And so I try not to adopt the proverbial white coat of insanity with digging into too many details, but it is where the joy is as well, is in crafting something that you feel is good. So I'm constantly reevaluating um, how much detail does this need, and will the audience care, and will the client care, right? If I add this additional layer of percussion, is it only for me? Is it doing anything? Am I wasting my time at the end of the day? And sometimes the answer is yes, sometimes it's no. Sometimes it's all a part of the creative process, right? Trial and error. I'm always kind of like throwing stuff at the wall, so to speak, and then whittling it away, taking it away, and trying to refine something in that manner, I guess.
Guild Wars 2 has a deeply passionate fan base who've lived in Tyria for years. Did that pressure change how you composed?
So I'm really grateful for the build up since I had the opportunity to compose for the franchise in 2020, working on a trailer and a few cinematics for the Icebrood saga. And then each subsequent year, I got a little more responsibility and there were a little bit more needs. I did in-game music, and then I co-composed an expansion, maybe about 40% of the expansion, and then the next one I did the main theme and composed about half the expansion. So by the time last year rolled around, I was really grateful that they asked me to be the lead composer and just take charge of the whole thing. And kudos to McLean Deemer, who's been the lead composer for the Guild Wars 2 franchise for like 15 years, and he's established an incredible tone and a culture as well. So it was really an opportunity to work under him, collaborate with him as well.
I want to go back to the expansion pack that just dropped in October of 2025. Have you gone back and listened to that in the way a player would?
Let's see. What I typically do is I'll watch YouTube walkthrough videos and experience in that way to kind of see how the devs program the music, because I'm not as involved in that process of exactly how they implement the music into the game in terms of the variation. When I send a track, I'll send different versions of that same track so that when it repeats, it's not playing the exact same music, but it's slightly varied so it doesn't get annoying. Because do no annoying is one of the biggest rules in video game music. And so I'll watch gameplay. I'll watch gameplay videos and commentary and just kind of experience that way. I'm not a huge gamer myself, so I'm not constantly in there playing it myself. But I try to. My excuse is that I'm too busy making experiences for gamers themselves.
And I'm sure that you probably feel a little bit removed in that way just because you were behind the scenes for so much of it.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, the game is there to entertain, to bring people together. It's a culture. It's like a microculture, and there's all these things that players are way more concerned about than the music. Although they always show appreciation for the music and they understand how it affects the experience and the nostalgia and the tying together of the emotions. But they're concerned about things like what are the elite specializations for this expansion? How is the story? Is there too much dialogue? Can I skip the dialogue? Fans get really into it, which I love. And so music is kind of the thing to come along and just, if they are frustrated about something, hopefully the music will make them forget about that for a minute and just say, "Oh, I love this game." that's that's a goal, at least in my head.
Someone listening to this right now is sitting on a composition they're too scared to finish. What do you tell them?
It sort of depends on the situation, I would say. If it's a personal project, like a passion project, I would say you need to ask yourself, why are you making this, and you need to feed your inspiration and maybe get out in nature, do something. Or like, are you being kind to yourself? Are you beating yourself up? I taught for a number of years, and I had some students that would really beat themselves up and be, uh, perfectionists before they had even really learned the craft. And you have to give yourself grace, and you have to be kind to yourself, and you have to continue to evaluate the why. Why am I doing this? Why am I being creative? Well, it's fun to be creative, but why am I creating this specific piece? And try to feed your inspiration as much as possible, and maybe get feedback, and or go to a different project and then come back to that one, so you don't get stuck, because the mind can get stuck on one thing and get frustrated by it. So you gotta feed your brain. You gotta do these mind tricks.
I like that you just said that. I recently started allowing myself to go on to other things. It's kind of like a way to get inspiration too, but like from your own mind.
Really quick, what are some of the creative pursuits you're doing? I'd love to know.
So I'm writing a script for a short film right now. I had an idea of how it was going to go, but then I started kind of getting into the intricate details of it a little bit too much. It was kind of like eating me alive. I was kind of writing and rewriting and like doing that thing where like maybe it could be hard to peel yourself away from because you kind of become a perfectionist about it. So definitely short film writing, script writing. That's been something I've been having to move away from and then come back to a little bit later.
Fantastic. And you might experience this as well. Maybe it's similar with music, and when you're imagining dialogue and the different characters and you're visualizing that. When I step away from the creative space, from the studio, and I go out, take a drive even or a walk, and then my mind in the background is might bring that up, and it might give me new ideas. And so yeah, taking breaks is such a power move for the brain and for the craft, just to give yourself space for it to sit. And maybe it's only like an hour or the next day. The next day is huge for me if I write something, and it's awesome. Just the new perspective of what a night's sleep can do.
Totally. And like even like a walk, no headphones, just like you and nature.
Yeah. Or noise canceling headphones in Costco. Also very peaceful experience.
Oh, I'm gonna have to give that one a
It's a life
try.
hack, yeah.
Do you ever think about the invisible emotional contract between a composer and someone who doesn't know your name and your work?
Invisible emotional contract, you said? I'm trying to think if I think about it in terms of an emotional contract. If someone is obviously if someone is playing Guild Wars, they are then to some degree forced to listen to my music. They can turn it off if they want to in the game setting. But otherwise, if they find my music on Spotify or on YouTube, something that always excited me about writing soundtrack music was imagining like my friends in the car just driving and just getting hyped on life, like listening to music, soundtrack music, because that's what I did. I love taking drives and day trips, and I would just listen to instrumental music, and I felt like I was swept up into this beautiful headspace, in a spiritual way too. Just as my thoughts are thinking about God or whatever I'm thinking about, it's just like music was a catalyst for that.
I guess it definitely does depend on where you are in your life. You know, how there's different music that you gravitate towards if you're feeling a certain type of way. And I always wondered if the artist maybe wanted to like give a little piece of their emotions or their feelings to the person on the receiving end in that way. Because I do feel like it's
Hmm.
still a collaboration when you're listening. I don't know, maybe I'm just getting a little too woo woo, but I just think
No,
that
no, I
that's.
love it. Well, it reminds me of John Williams, who his story is very interesting. The composer for Star Wars and everything. His wife passed away, I think in his 40s, and there's a documentary about him on Disney Plus, and he talks about how his music kind of changed after that, and he described it, or others described it, as being from a deeper place, and there was just his music spoke in a way that I still feel. And it's all very subtle. Music is the most abstract art form, I think arguably. And so how things translate, it's very magical. It's very kind of mystical if you think about like someone might be affected by this instrument or this sound or this genre of music much more, can make them cry for no reason, honest sometimes, or seemingly, and this other person might just be I don't really care about it. I believe we are spiritual beings inside of our bodies. You know, we are all one, we are one being, but I believe we are primarily spiritual beings, and so I think we're in tune to things like that.
Brian, thank you so much for joining me today and talking to me about your work and your life as a lead composer.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It's been really fun. It's gotten me hyped, honestly, for the rest of the week.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I'm excited.
And best wishes on your short film screenplay as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I took a film